Welcome to the HeartStream Musings podcast, a podcast to help you on your journey of self-love. I'm your host, Lisa Mae Francisco, a self-love coach and inner child guide. In the podcast, we'll dive deep on how to heal your inner child wounds, break your relationship patterns, and liberate your truth so you can claim the relationships in life that you deserve. Thanks so much for listening. I'm super excited that you're here. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the HeartStream Musings podcast. I'm super stoked that you're here and that you're listening again to another episode of season 2. And today I have a very special guest. Her name is Tracy Mon, and she is a relationship and mindfulness coach. And this is actually the first time. So we're internet friends, but this is the first time I'm actually meeting her live in person. So we had a little pre-date before recording the episode. And we are both a part of this community called Asian Wonder Woman. And they have a newsletter and they feature one of their members every single Friday. And I saw Tracy featured and thought that what she was sharing about relationship and mindfulness was just so impactful. And so what did I do? I stalked her online and I think I asked you to be on the podcast before I was even having guests. And so I'm so glad that we get to come together and record an episode. So I would love for you to say hi to the audience.
Yeah, hi. It's nice to be here and I'm really excited. So it's funny because on the forum, I was telling you, Lisa, that you're taking my podcast virginity. So I'm just so happy I reached out, just, putting that energy out there. I'm like, yes, like, why not? I really admire that.
Of course. I think you have such great things to share, even beyond like your audience and social media. And so I'd really love to just dive in and understand what was the path that even got you into like coaching, first of all, and then specifically, how did you land on relationship and mindfulness coaching? Because I had to look at your Notion page and I said, oh, what is that? So I'd love for you to share that.
Yeah, so it's definitely not a long, non-linear path. So I used to be a UX designer, been in that field for like over 5 years. And I kind of just wanted to give myself a break in terms of like mental health. I was like, yes, I need this. I deserve this. And what actually happened, it started as, because I'm a designer in training. Originally, I was like, I want to design my dream sex toy. And I was like, yes, like this is design. This is like, I'm industrial design. I have like a vision. Like I just want, if my purpose is to create something that I can use and I enjoy, great. That was like my first, initial plan. After
oh
quitting.
My God. Wait. I was like, we can't just like
tangent.
Wait, what kind of sex toy?
Okay. Do you want to go into this? Like,
yeah,
so
I'm so
high level. This, this is like obviously on pause, because that was when I had more capital, like in crypto, another story. This sex toy is, the idea is that you can use it with a partner and it's not penetrative and it's almost for the entire vulva. So ever since I was young, I think I started masturbating, I was like 5 and I would like be on my stomach because our vulva, it extends, like way more than just like the clit. And I would actually orgasm like on my stomach. So I was like, oh, I was picturing a vibrating cushion out there because it doesn't really exist yet. There's a lot of penetrative, there's a lot of cool innovations. And I think right now at time, it's like there's so many female CEOs in the sex industry, which is amazing because, please no more just like ugly dick shaped, dildos. Like I want something like aesthetic and welcoming and approachable and yeah.
Oh my God. I love that. That. So it's like, should
toy.
Should we have people donate to this idea? No. Crowdsource.
Yeah. Kickstarter.
Funding. Yeah.
So it started from there. And I kind of just, threw myself in thinking that, oh, this is what I'm going to do. But I think what I really needed at that time was to give myself a break. So that was also at the same time I was working through practicing polyamory in a way that was just theory based and just baby steps physically, but it wasn't, like fully the entire, I guess, practice where we would have, my partner and I would have different partners.
What
And
does
it
it mean?
honestly drew me wild. Yeah, go ahead.
What does it mean to practice it in theory?
Okay, so to practice it, it's like, we can say like we're mindful, but we're actually like practicing mindfulness. Like, oh, I can say I'm polyamorous, but no, it's like I'm actually practicing it because it is like a framework, a concept. And in theory, the theory work for me is, educating myself about it and working through jealousy in a safe container, through like visualization, just through transparent communication with your partner. They tell you everything that's on their mind that maybe make you feel uncomfortable. And even that, really challenged me. Like that would trigger me without the actual action. So those were the baby steps that we decided to work on together instead of boom, okay, let's do it. Because that shit is wild or crazy.
Yeah. So then you were
um,
practicing it in theory. And then how did that lead you to this path of coaching from there?
mhm. So I was saying that at that time, it was just a lot of these things coming to me. And I felt like I really needed like a mental break because I was kind of coming to a point where my Pandora box completely opened. And I was like, hey, I need to go just unplug, like disconnect, like come back to myself. So just something in me knew that I was right. But I had to go to like a 10-day meditation retreat where it's just silence, you can't talk. So when I was there, one of my major takeaways was instead of, thinking about the sex toy, it was all heavily focused about how I related to people, like family, friends, work, and my partner at the time. Um, a lot of like past events surfaced for me where I had to face a lot of challenges. But the main thing that I think led me to relationship as a focus was really focusing on my parents. I think one of the breaking points, or like not breaking points, huge release points where I was just like waterfalling, like crying during one session, was really being able to see my parents for who they are as humans and not parents where they, had their own struggle and pain. Because before then, I always felt like a victim, like, oh, my parents did this to me, did that to me. This is why I am the way I am, that like victim mentality. It was until I kind of had this new compassionate lens that I was able to untap and access to really look at them through that. I was like, wow, like it's not just black and white. And, a part of relating with people is that hurt people. And to be able to just kind of accept it all was just very liberating for me. So during the meditation retreat, we're supposed to, we can't use screens. We weren't supposed to write, but I brought a journal anyways. And I started kind of like creating out this deck of like, okay, I want to run this little like workshop with my parents when I go back and see them. Um, so I did that. I went back, created PowerPoint for them. I think that was just like the starting point of like, wow, like I am starting to shift, my relationship with them because it was very unhealthy prior to that. Um, so the idea came in where it's like, oh, I feel really passionate around this. I find so much meaning and purpose in something like this, like a guided facilitation of, yeah, where couples can come together and really just lay it on a table and be like, how can we go back to zero, or at least understand, see each other for who we are and accept both truths, not just my. So it led to me telling, some people like, oh, I want to create like design templates for workshops or some kind of interactive, activity for people. because that's what my background was in. I was a UX interactive designer in like EdTech from creating social emotional education for kids. So when I put that out there, a few of my friends are like, oh, have you thought of coaching? And two people who actually trained with CTI, Coactive Training Institute, they were like, yeah, you should try it out. I have introductory programs. Like, oh, why not? Like I'm just here for learning. Took the first course, absolutely fell in love with the experiential learning. And that just started my path. I was like, okay, introductory course. What's next? I want to do all the modules. Yeah, just so valuable, so valuable. And obviously having worked with a coach myself too, who is actually like a friend as well. Yeah, that started
Wow.
that path.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful story. So I'm curious, what was that deck that you created for your parents after the retreat that inspired you
Mm-hmm.
and how they were open to it? That's amazing.
Yeah, so I was kind of approaching it from a user experience point of view. It's like, oh, how
Uh,
can I structure it in a way where, it prepares you to come into a space, create a safe space, and then, tackle kind of like one thing at a time where it's
mm,
interactive, sharing back and forth. By all means, it wasn't perfect for my parents. It was so hard because my intention, I set myself to just like, okay, like I'm going to go through this because there's so many points where they were triggered at each other and they're talking to me and like blaming each other, but like towards me and not directly to each other. I'm like, okay, like let's focus, like bring it back.
yeah.
So, it started off with like, okay, let's like, like take some time to settle into our bodies, like a few moments of meditation and just really having that space where they can focus on each other. Mm-hmm.
So is it more, because in my head I'm thinking of like, is it like a relationship mediation type of experience or what, like what was the actual workshop even about? Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a bit of mediation, um, and also I guess it's so silly to say, but there were slides on there, like I could pull it out, but I remember there were slides on there where I was like, hey, like because of your relationship struggle and pains, this impacted my brother and I.
Oh, wow. So you were like calling them on their
I
shit.
was, yeah, I guess basically calling it out, but in a very, I just kind of wanted to shine the light on it and just start that conversation. And,
Wow.
and yeah, like I think at the end of it, it was good. I'm really glad how like, where it landed and where it got to, because it was just,
Uh-huh.
okay, it's like out here on the table that we can talk about this now. Whereas before, it was just so normalized in our household to never resolve conflict, just ignore it, carry on, pretend, everything's fine. Oh, don't tell
Right.
people this, don't tell people that. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So that's so interesting because it's your coaching journey, like you talked about, you had very much this victim mentality, and then you went on this 10-day, meditation retreat, and you had that visualization experience of your parents. It almost sounds like forgiving them, seeing them as whole and their own individual personalities and as their own sovereign beings, and then
Mm-hmm.
being able to do a workshop with them. So
It's
isn't
like
it
where's
funny,
my head
right?
at? Yeah.
But like, isn't it funny, right? It's like the thing that causes us strife actually is the path towards, our dharma or the liberation that we're seeking, of just like truly walking, to that fire. And so did how did that help afterwards? By doing that with them, do you often do that with them? Or, because I think it's so interesting when you kind of break the dynamic, right? Like you said, we just never talked about things. We kind of just, things were a conflict. That was it. Of changing it. Like how did people acclimate afterwards?
Yeah, I think that was definitely, like the first step in the shift of the
Hmm.
dynamic. And And you know, my home base is in Taiwan and they're in Canada, so there's not a lot of like time together, and I haven't ran one since then, but it's been more intentional where, you know, I would be like, okay, like I do want to call them and have this, like have certain talks. If they see something, I can be like, hey, like I'm going to advocate for my boundary. So it was almost like reclaiming my power back. It's like I'm not a child anymore and they're not just my parents. Like I want to see them for parents, and I mean, sorry, I want to see them for who they are, not just as parents, as humans, and just really understanding and absorbing, you know, their past, their history, and all that. Yeah, generational trauma. And whenever I learn about it and reflect on the hurt that, you know, I receive from them, it's like, oh, it comes from here. And it's like, yes, like I can kind of take this bigger picture in and approach it with more compassion and grace. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so when did your own spiritual journey
Mm-hmm.
begin with this, right? It's not like we're all born with this knowledge. And so I'm really curious
Right.
about when was the seed planted, resources that really inspire you, what's, true for you today.
Yeah. You know, I think just having this, you know, voice inside me saying like, you need to go to this like silent retreat, that was definitely the kickstart. Like, you know, just like it just like, you know, pushed me right into the deep end. I'm so grateful for it, because in the past I would just be like, oh, I'll do like 10 minutes meditation here and there, journal, you know, like try therapy, but like nothing was really resonant with me until I found, you know, solitude and like silence. And yeah, it was just so, I think one thing really sticks to me from the nun who was our instructor there that really brought so many things to light for me. She said this thing where she said, you know, people always say rest in peace when you die, like RIP. Like, and she challenged us saying, like, oh, like we can live in peace as well. It doesn't have to be in death. And I think that was just like a moment of like, holy shit, like clarity for me, because in my past I normalized depression and anxiety as just like, oh, this is just me. And I've had, you know, I think normally my coping mechanism all throughout like my childhood to like my late 20s is ideate, like, you know, suicidal ideation. And I just, that was just so normal to me. I was like, yeah, okay, I'm doing this thing now because it's like a way of escape. Um, and I think once I realized that, it's like, wow, like I really haven't been kind to myself. And to this day, the biggest, I think one of my biggest feat is, oh, I don't have that thought anymore. And it feels like day and night to recognize it. Because the first, I think after the first realization, all the times that it did came up, I was like, oh shit, like no, like I don't, like why is this coming up? Like I no, like this does not feel right. Like I don't want to, you know, I can't continue validating this. I need to validate like my self-love, my truth, my sacred being. Like how can I treat myself like that?
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you started to explore that relationship of almost like this strong aversion of like, how could I think like that? Which is such a transformation because it used to be your norm. You described it as very habitual to all of a sudden, like, why would I do that? Why would I treat myself like
Mm-hmm.
that? Why would I even have those thoughts about myself and going on this path of self-love? So I'm really curious as to what was that journey like? It's almost like you're giving us these little like breadcrumbs, and it's so exciting to
Mm.
just see how that's, led you to this path that you're on now. So I'd love to explore and just kind of expand on what what did self-love look like for you even then?
So what self-love looked like for me even then, I think self-love looked like for me in the form of grieving myself for not having been there for, you know, that like self-abandonment, and just giving up or feeling like my power was taken from me. And I've just lived life kind of in that mindset. So it was a lot of grief and acceptance and just learning, how, yeah, like how can I be softer, kinder to myself? And, I guess to link this with my path of polyamory too. Polyamory, I really appreciate like the framework that it revolves around. It's about, it is about open, non-possessive love. I think even though it was really hard for me, it was more for like my partner opened up the idea first. And I was like, okay, yeah. So I would be lying if I said it was for me, like a part of it is for him. But what I did for me was, oh, if I can get to a place where I can truly decide if I want to continue this and fully practice, I like, it's not a waste of time. Like I know I would have gotten to that place and that much growth and ability to feel secure and have that inner peace to continue. So it's like, yeah, okay, I'll walk down the path till this point, and then I'm gonna check in with myself. Yeah, it definitely required a lot.
Yeah.
of
So someone that's
mhm.
new on that journey of polyamory, maybe like they're interested or their partner, like yours, experience, they were interested in the idea and they brought it to the table first. Um, what's sort of the guidance that you have for them exploring?
Mm-hmm. So I think one major thing for me is to be able to, like, for me, I had to completely rebuild my self-love foundation. Like, I didn't break it down myself. It came down by itself. I just like, felt like something just got ripped, like, a rug being ripped off under you. And I was like, oh fuck, what do I do from here? It's like, okay, now I'm starting to like rebuild. So I think one thing that I would offer is, how can you ensure that you are able to validate yourself at all times? Because it's great to be interdependent. We don't want to be, super codependent with a partner, but interdependent, but always be able to fill up your own cup and be able to validate yourself, because it's so easy to subconsciously seek it externally. It's just like default and it just feels good. It's like, oh yeah, like dopamine hits. That's really important to find a way to do that for yourself, and that looks different for everybody. And I think that's kind of like the beauty of it too, where everyone can explore what works for them. Mm-hmm.
And I remember you mentioned that you had to really look at those feelings of jealousy, possession. So what was your, hero's journey with it and sort of this storyline, this arc, and how did you manage to walk through those heavy emotions? Because, it's so easy when you
Yes.
have those emotions of like shutting down and be like, all right, this is not for me. But at what point did you realize I can face it and still continue with it? And why did what made it resonant to you and that becoming your truth of wanting to continue with it? Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, yeah, for sure. Like so much, um, jealousy surfaced for me. And in jealousy, I think one of the biggest challenges was the anger that came up with me. Like I got so like just, like just vivid, like so fucking angry at times. And being able to bring mindfulness into those moments and be like, wait, like what am I actually angry at? Is it like, my partner, or like my partner's person of like interest, or like who they're seeing, or is it like something that is triggered from my past? And just to really be able to sit with it and kind of explore where it's coming from, I found that, in the depth of it, like under the surface, it's just this really scared, like sad, like desperate child of mine who's just like so scared of being abandoned again and again. Yeah. And just,
Mm.
anger is kind of like the cry for help. So really being able to listen to myself and my body has been one of the most useful tools. Hmm. Yeah, definitely listen to my body. I think each time, I can come out on the other side of trigger and be like, oh, hey, like that was like actually a lot smoother. Like it's like a bit better. It's not perfect. And like, there won't be like maybe in the future, there will be
Yeah.
like not a really ugly trigger resolve. But the times that I'm like, wow, like I got through that, I'm really proud of myself. Um,
Mhm.
and I think my anchor in practicing this, or, at least just like, I don't necessarily have to practice it to be polyamorous because I think I can do either. And there's this term called like ambiamorous, where you can be monogamous or polyamorous. But my anchor is, I want to feel that self-liberation by owning my jealousy. It's not, if I'm jealous, it's not like, oh, other people have to stop or do a certain action for my safety, for my well-being. I need to take ownership of, yeah, like what's coming out of me, like my own emotions. And
Mm.
there's so much healing and empowerment in that. It's like each time something comes up now, I'm like, ooh, what's this going to be about? Almost like what am I going to lock this time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So it's almost as if you're using the relational experiences as a mirror of what needs to have more healing and being able to, like you said, take
Yeah.
true ownership, accountability, and responsibility. So it's almost like in a way that um, it's like a circumstance doesn't have to necessarily pull you under, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. And it's not to say having an imbalanced perspective of, oh, I'm just not I'm gonna be at that point where I'm non-reactive to stuff, right?
Right.
Like we're
That's not how we
human.
work. And it's like it's okay to be under, but it's almost this
Hmm.
belief and trust in yourself. Like I won't be under forever. I will
Right.
shift. I will, my emotions and feelings will transition.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. And so when are fully claiming like, okay, I'm a relationship and mindfulness coach. So what does that look like? Because I think you can tap into so many different things.
So
Um,
big. So
right,
big. Yeah.
right. And so it's like, how would someone like know they need a relationship and mindfulness coach?
Hmm. Yeah. I think when I say relationship and mindfulness coach, and that's like the label that I decided to go with back then. I think now
Yeah.
when I think about what I really want to, the message and what I want to offer out there is this ability to relate to yourself and relate with others from a place of inner peace and safety. I think those are the two main things for me. Um, and it looks like most of my clients is what we do one-on-one, and we'll talk about like a trigger, or like, oh, they're jealous, they want to improve communication, all that. I think so many times at the end of the day, it comes back to yourself first, and that is like the core that you're trying to work through, and then that is reflected out in how you relate to others. Kind of like the mirror analogy you just had. I was thinking
Hmm.
of it as, how you relate to yourself is reflected in how you relate to others, and not just romantic relationships. It's like work, friends, family. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for yourself, what do you think the biggest lessons that you are just taking in and learning?
Yeah. Biggest lessons. So many. They're all huge lessons.
Yeah.
If I had to pick one right now, it's the lesson of there's so much wisdom in all of us.
Hmm.
And it comes to me when I am, intentional about it and giving myself time in silence and solitude and rest. Mhm. And that And that from there, it's almost like such a nice place to kind of like recalibrate, and knowing how to get there. I have so much self-trust now. Like, okay, I can handle anything, kind of thing. And I guess how that will show up in relationships is having just like seeing it as the ability to, there's always room for improvement. There's always room to iterate. And it's also just such a safe container to heal when you establish trust and love and compassion for your partner.
And so how did you build self-trust for yourself? And then how did you build it in this like new container, like relationship container, like polyamory?
So self-trust for myself, I think it's consistency. So, in the times that I am super dysregulated because of this external event or that external event, being able to come back each time, I'm like, okay, like it's okay, that happened. I felt all this. It's really uncomfortable and anxiety inducing at times, but I can return to this place. And also keeping, like whenever I do like journaling or like meditation, or guest, support from like other coaches, it all comes together as like, okay, yeah, like I have resources. I know how to reach out for support now, and also give myself that resources.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And yeah. And then self-trust in relationships, or just kind of like the trust between you and a partner in
I would say both, right? Yeah, because I know, polyamory is such a tricky thing for people, right? You mentioned it yourself of like the jealousy, the possession that comes up. And so really seeing how have you softened sort of into that and that lens into that and building trust, right? Building that trust of, is this truly for me, or am I just pushing myself through the trigger to get to another side, right? It's like, how do you know the bounds of like, what's your boundary? That's either conditioned, or it's a narrative that was fed to you, or is it really your truth, right? I think it's so interesting of like, how do you distinguish that? Like, is it just pushing yourself, or is it really your truth?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because, like polyamory might not work for everyone, might not work for, the specific kind of relationship that you have. So for me, I see it as like, oh, it's on my journey right now to teach me so many lessons. Like I am really grateful for it right now in my life, because I am taking away so much. And, because I'm approaching it like that, like, oh, like, kind of like a beginner's mindset. Like I want to, do this to learn about myself right now. I am able to approach it, through communication with my partner to, yeah, just kind of like build that trust up slowly. And of course, trust is really easily broken. And I think maybe when I say trust, it's so easy to interpret it in romantic relationships as, oh, like, like cheating, being loyal, like infidelity. But it's I think for me, it's more of like a trust to be an emotional haven for your partner, to trust that they will show up themselves like 100% to you, and I can be 100% true to them in all honesty. Yeah, and that takes a lot of, kind of putting your ego aside or your triggers aside, and doing it from
Right.
a very like a place of understanding and compassion. Yeah.
Because it's almost like you have to be really good with your communication and really transparent about what's going on. Like there has to be, right? Because I've spoken to other people that are in
Oh gosh, yeah.
relationships,
It's
and it's
basically
like,
it's over communicating everything. That's like,
yeah,
you need to be able to talk about your emotions and feelings for sure. But yes, definitely
yeah,
over communicate. That is a way to do it.
right. It's almost like, like level setting the expectations Constantly. Like you
constantly,
said.
constant check-ins too. My partner and I have that where it just,
Uh-huh.
yeah, allows you to have a time and space to, you know, over communicate. Because if we did that every day, that's not the most efficient. We're bleed into other areas of your life. So it's like, yeah.
You're like, there has to be some containment. Like, let's not just be wild with
Yes.
it. Yeah.
There's always a balance that you're coming back to. And it's you get out of balance, you come back into balance.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And so what are you currently excited about within your business right now?
Yeah, so in my business right now, I am really excited to see how I can bring in my creator side, designer side, because I,
Mhm.
love the process of creation and merge it with coaching. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm super excited to have that like outburst of creative energy so I can focus on it. Um, because right now I've been, honing in like my coaching practice through mainly one-on-one and like
Mhm.
two-on-one or more. Um, so
Wow.
yeah,
Because that
yeah,
is
kind
exciting,
of
right? Being
improve.
able to like marriage those skill sets or those passions of yours. And
Yeah.
so, because I could really see, because you talked about in the beginning of doing, a workshop or a deck with your parents, and just what does that look like in terms of the
Mhm.
impact and the scale of what you have to share and offer?
Right. And also I am thinking about, how can I add the element of play in there? I know it's just such
Mm.
like a natural state for me, like just like play. So, like trying to merge all these things that I would love to see come to
Yeah.
fruition. Yes.
Yeah. And so, how do you integrate play in your life right now?
Like I'm like I don't know, a simple player. I don't know. So for example, I'm currently visiting my parents right now. And they have a beautiful garden. And literally every day I'm just like out there, like I just put on music, like, dance, just like hang out with plants and flowers, like draw, sketch. Yeah, I'm really good at just being
Yeah.
and not doing anything with an outcome. Yeah.
That's
So it
good.
brings some of that into like, hey, what can I use this for? My
Yeah.
business. Yes.
And then where are you headed to next? I know that you said you're visiting your family in Canada. And are you going to go back to Taiwan, or is it like a big question mark?
Yeah, so Taiwan is my home base. My partner's there. So before
Mhm.
that, I'll actually be visiting another partner in the States and I have a wedding to go to in Canada on the East Coast. And then
Oh,
Taiwan.
fun.
Yeah.
Oh, look at you. I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
Are there any final thoughts that you would love to share?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's almost like a message to myself and maybe
Mhm.
to others who may resonate because I've been in like a stuck place in a hidden place for so long. Just want to say that you matter, you belong, and you're so more than worthy. Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Mhm.
And I have one last question. I always ask at the end of my podcast of what are you doing to fill up your own self-love cup and connect to the little you?
Mm. I've been doing well, like, I guess to go back to what I was saying, I'm really good at just doing like nothing, just being, dancing, drawing, and being affectionate, like showing
Mm.
affection. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Mhm.
And if people want to find you, want to work with you, where can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so right now my main platform you can find me on is on Instagram. It's relating.beans. So it's basically I have a bunch of, relationship mm, tidbits with that's depicted with these beans. And it's most of it is based on my personal experience. Yeah, and it's where you can also find a link on my profile to a free coaching session with me in exchange for a research interview. And I'm especially interested to hear from you if you are curious about or practicing polyamory.
Okay, so there you guys go. It's a call to action. So if you are curious, reach out to Tracy. She will be able to connect with you, and we'll put all of that in the show notes. But I just want to thank you so much for being on here, sharing your truth, your story, how you got into becoming a relationship and mindfulness coach, focusing on, self-trust, how you navigate, your relationships as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you all for listening. So super stoked to have you connect with us on this episode, and we will catch you on the next one. All right. Bye, everybody.